Yeah. Well, what is real is that when you talk about C-suites and you're moving up the line, that we show up less and less. And when I'm working with leaders that are at that level, oftentimes, and you talked about imposter syndrome, oftentimes folks are intimidated, recognizing that it doesn't take much for people to start attributing the fact that you're a man of color to why you didn't perform at the level that they anticipated. So people know that they are targets in many ways, and this is true today in this country, as it is other places. And so a lot of times when I work with leaders, it's really about helping them to know that it's a reason to be an ambassador. In other words, when you show up and you're one of the only men of color in the room, this is time to shine. This is time to change the narrative. This is your opportunity to show up on time. I had to learn these things, Lonnie, the hard way. This is your time to speak intelligently. You don't have to always open your mouth, but when you open your mouth, make sure that it's worth noting. It's time to be prepared. It's time to look good, smell good. It's time to show up and represent, because behind you are possibilities of doors being closed or not, depending on how you show up. And so I help men. I spend a lot of time on mindset. I help people to understand that you are, in fact, worthy. It is possible for you to get in these spaces. And today, with technology allowing us to have access to information and skill set, there's nothing stopping anybody from learning anything that they desire to do. So you have the ability or the capacity. It's about the decision. Success.
Welcome to the I Learn, Therefore I Can podcast, an iRise performance consulting production where we explore the dynamic world of performance through a learning and development lens with a focus on achieving excellence. I'm your host, Lonnie Gregory, and I'm inspired by those of you that wish to be better at what you've been asked to do.
Wayne Dawson, also known as Coach Wayne VIP, is a highly accomplished individual with a diverse background in leadership and youth development. Here is a summary of his impressive biography. Wayne Dawson originally hails from Kingston, Jamaica, and has a background in transforming failing resorts in the Caribbean's hospitality industry, notably in Aruba, the Bahamas, and St. Martin. In New York, Wayne served as the campus director for the Dunleavy Milbank Center, a renowned non-profit organization, Children's Aid, showcasing his expertise in youth development. Wayne has held pivotal roles within the Boys and Girls Clubs of America at the national level. Wayne is an alumnus of the City University of New York, holding a Master of Social Work from Hunter College and a bachelor's degree with honors from City College. He later returned as an adjunct professor, teaching in various departments. As the co-founder of Harlem Men Stand Up, Wayne has made significant contributions to supporting disenfranchised black men through network building and resource linking, earning recognition for his efforts. Since 2014, Wayne has been residing in South Florida, where he led a learning and development team in a Fortune 100 company during a period of significant growth. Wayne is a sought-after speaker and moderator, focusing on black youth development and black male empowerment. He is the founder and CEO of VIP Transformative Living LLC, where he utilizes his skills as a certified life coach to empower men of color through midlife transitions. Wayne leads a vegan lifestyle and enjoys activities such as golfing, target shooting, and African studies. He values spending time with his wife, Dr. Audrey Dawson, and their blended family of 7 children and 3 grandchildren. Wayne has received recognition for his work, including being named Role Model of the Week by influencer Tony Tacumbo Etica Fernandez and honored as a Men to Watch 2024 honoree by Black leaders worldwide. Wayne's dedication to coaching and guiding men of color towards a fulfilling and significant life is truly commendable.
Good morning, friends. You just listened to an incredible introduction of Wayne Dawson. Fascinating, a brother doing incredible work. You have to listen to this entire conversation, which, by the way, I'm not sure how it's going to go. Wayne and I met on LinkedIn, like so many of us have, and we established a relationship. We started to talk, very interested in the work that he was doing, and it fit right in with one of the major topics for the conversations on I Learn, Therefore I Can. So, I had to twist his arm a little bit. No, I'm kidding, to get on the show, but he's here. You can see that smile. We're ready to have a great conversation. Wayne, thank you so much for joining me on this platform to have a conversation about what you do, how you do it, and more importantly, why you do the things that you do. Welcome, Wayne.
Beloved Lonnie,
How you
thank
doing
you so
today?
much. I'm delighted and I'm very flattered to be on your platform. Good morning.
Good morning. You're flattered. I'm the one that's flattered. I've seen your work on LinkedIn, man. You are prolific. You have great guests that you interview, that you talk to, that you have conversations with. I'm pleased just to have you, be in your presence. So I think we're good for each other today.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Indeed. So listen, before we jump right into this, I do have a question or a request, basically. Wayne, tell us something about yourself that I can't understand by reading your LinkedIn profile or a resume or any one of your publications or anything else that you've done. Something that you're willing to share. Say a little bit about yourself that we just don't necessarily know.
So, like everybody else, though, I start off with the woo woo, let's win, let's make it happen mentality. I too get up some mornings where I don't know if the left foot goes down before the right. And because of this, I have been practicing since COVID with my wife a ritual, which is a gratitude ritual. And Lonnie, that's simply finding something to be grateful for that we share with each other every morning before we start our day. So I'll roll over and I'll touch my wife, Audrey, and she gets up and I'll say, honey, what are you grateful for today? And it's
Wow.
very simple sometimes. It's just as simple as being able to see the sunlight filtering through our blinds from the lake when we get up. We're in Florida and we enjoy the outdoors, but sometimes it's rainy, it's overcast. So on a day
Right.
that's sunny, it's as simple as that. But here's what that does for us, Ronnie. It starts our day on a win. It makes us positive. And so we have been practicing that since COVID, over 3 years now, and we never miss a day.
That's wonderful. Wake up with a feeling of gratitude and then to actually express that right out loud to one another. The first thing that you do, that's beautiful, friends. I think there's a lesson in that, friends. Wake up in the morning with the heart of gratitude and share that immediately to help maintain that perspective throughout the day. Wayne, that reminds me of what my father used to say. I used to ask him, Dad, how you doing? He's like, I'm on the right side of the grass. I'm doing good.
Absolutely.
So we always have something to be grateful for. Thanks for sharing that
You're
important
welcome, sir.
message. So, friends, you will notice there on the bottom of the screen where our names are, like my name's Lonnie Gregory. Wayne has Coach Wayne Dawson there on the screen. So that's what we're going to kind of get into, Wayne. This ideal, and not this ideal, the fact that you are a coach, you support others, you help others, you are there for others. Please share a little bit about your coaching philosophy and what you do and why you do it.
Certainly, thank you. So, my wife is a licensed therapist, and there's always this conversation with people that we meet. What is the difference between coaching and therapy? And of course, there are others that will ask about mentoring. I've done the role of being a mentor in my previous professional career. And as a coach, Lonnie, here's what the distinction is and the reason why I do it. Coaching takes the individual and looks at them with the perspective of 360 degrees. Coaching does not necessarily live in the past as some other modalities do of intervention, but we will visit the past to figure out how we can leverage it to move to the here and now. In coaching, we call on your strengths and we envelop a strategy using your strengths to launch you into your future. But we work with the here and now. A coach doesn't have to be as great in terms of his or her performance as the client. But what the coach can do is take almost an objective view of what's happening with the individual and be able to call strikes and hits from that perspective.
Wow.
My wife, on the other hand, and she's great at what she does as a therapist, she looks at traumas and other incidents in the past, psychopathology even. And then she
Mm.
works at working with the individual so that they are better prepared to deal with those issues of the past. And of course, it impacts the present, but we don't spend that much time getting there unless it's for data, so to speak. Now, I've been doing this for a while. In fact, professionally, I fired corporate America over 3 years
Mm.
ago and walked away from a six-figure income and all the so-called securities because I knew this was a mission. It was a calling. My friend Sean Dove
Yes.
says, Wayne, stop stalling your calling. And I responded. And so why I do this work is because even in learning and development, I was a leader in a Fortune 30 when I walked away. Even in that area, I found that I was always coaching up my staff, always coaching
Right.
peers. And so it was just a natural transition.
Thanks. You know, you said something fascinating. I had to write it down. A friend of yours said to you, I mean, stop stalling, you're
Yes, sir.
calling. That's really cool. I got to use that probably on my kids, right? So say something about, you know, that period in your life where your friend had to intervene and remind you that you were a purpose-filled man. What was going on in that time when he had to say that to you?
Well, like most of us, when we have a vision, which is we, in terms of our thoughts, leave our presence and visit the future, see what's happening and bring back that information. About 25 years ago, when I met Sean, I was at the time running one of the oldest non-for-profits in youth services in the country in Harlem. And we sat at a restaurant called Amy Ruth. And on a napkin, we decided to draw out what our vision might look like and on the back of a menu in a few years. At the time I created this vision board, as it were, on this napkin. And over the years, Sean and I have grown into the various areas of this. But there were some pieces that I had not yet realized. And so from time to
Mm.
time, we would have these power meetings, Sean, myself, and another brother called Melvin. And shout out to Melvin Austin and Sean. And we would sit down and just talk about where we are. These brothers have really accomplished a lot. We all have in our own rights, but we hold each
Yes.
other accountable and shake that tree. And so Sean would come to me and says, Wayne, you want to publish, but you're not writing. Wayne, you want to speak, but you got to do, speakers speak, writers write, coaches coach. And so when we got to the coaches coach piece, uh, he just said to me, listen, man, bring VIP transformative living alive, brother. It's time to do it. Fear, FEAR, is what it was that kept me from moving all these years.
Wow. Powerful. Aren't you grateful to have someone in your life like that to hold you accountable, to encourage you, to praise you, and to scold you,
Absolutely.
right? That type of thing. That is powerful. Thanks so much for
You're welcome.
sharing that. So uh, of course, from your LinkedIn profile, we can understand VIP. What's of particular interest, though, is you're not like a functional coach or a professional career coach. You're really into the coaching around wellness for men of color. Um, how did you decide after coming out of corporate America and having coached everybody, right? How did you decide to narrow your
Right,
niche down to being that specific?
right. And a point of just clearing, I'm not a wellness coach. I'm a life coach, and I focus on men in midlife. So mid-career men, men who are typically men 40 through say 60. What I have discovered is, as a former campus director for 4 locations in Harlem, dealing with the lifespan of youth and families across the board, so to speak, people of color, I recognize that there were lots and lots of opportunities for youth programming and for youth to get involved in activities. But we oftentimes would blame youth for what was happening in their lives, and the accountability oftentimes slipped the adults. And so, at a
Mm-hmm.
time when there was the crack epidemic in Harlem and I was doing this, I realized that a lot of grandmothers and mothers were raising kids. The fathers were largely absent, you know, because of a range of circumstances. And
Indeed.
so, as I grew up and the kids that I mentored grew up, they kind of grew up with me. And I said, let me segue and start working with these young people who are launching into having families, have had their first homes, but they're feeling stuck. They're feeling insignificant. They're feeling like it's not enough. It's called
Wow.
the crisis. We go through a quarter life crisis at age about 25 through 35. We're figuring it out. And we also have a adolescent crisis. But then there's this midlife crisis, Lonnie, where we start asking, is this all, you know? And Lonnie, you
Right.
know that most of us may have gone through a career that we did because somebody told us that we should have done that thing in college or just to pay the bills.
Right. Indeed.
So I decided to work and focus on that particular niche, Lonnie, to say, hey, I haven't forgotten you. You listen, you can be better on the other side. The second half is a new beginning, and it can be your best half.
Indeed. New beginning and your best half. Wonderful sentiment. So, Wade, you and I have just a lot of things in common. We actually know some people. In fact, as we were building up to have this conversation, we just happened to share a little bit more. Of course, you mentioned that you worked in Harlem. I went to school in Harlem, probably a few years before you started doing your thing. But we have a mutual friend, uh, um, Kennedy.
Jeff, Canada.
Yeah,
Yes,
Jeff
sir.
Canada. In fact, my father and his mother were incredibly
Yes, sir.
close. Uh, and I met her. We've had conversations over the years. And again, this is back in the 70s. And I am aware that Jeff started his schools in Harlem, was very supportive of that initiative. So you worked with Jeff around establishing these charter
No,
schools.
so Jeff is not a personal friend. So I worked with the Children's Society. It's a Boys and Girls Club. And we were a force to be reckoned with in terms of supporting youth and families in that community and others. There were at the time about 40 sites, ranged from after school programs to scholarship entree programs and just youth development all across the board. They're in school systems now throughout the metropolitan area. And Jeff came up with the idea of Harlem Children's Zone. Now, Jeff had belonged to Reedland, which was the progenitor to Harlem Children's Zone. But Harlem Children's Zone was looking at the idea that one block at a time, if we
Mm,
work with kids from the womb to the tomb, meaning from the minute they come out, we have programs for them and their families. And he made sure that the parents were accountable. So they would have reading programs where the parents had to show up on a Saturday with the kids. And he would take them all the way through college and then check up on them after. And that was the vision. And so, because that was so akin to the work that we did, from afar, we had reverence and respect. So I did know and meet Jeff on occasions, and I was inspired by Jeff. And I think he had a lot of respect for the work that we did at Children's Aid Society. Because listen, Lonnie, in this field, there aren't enough of us, right, to support strong black families. And so
Right.
That's how I got to know Jeff Canada. My boy, my friend, my man, Sean Dove, worked as one of the directors for Jeff, and Jeff was his personal mentor.
Gotcha. All right. This is a
Yes,
small
sir.
world. We are indeed connected, and we need to be connected to be more supportive of one another. Again, fascinating story. So friends, the other thing that I want to share with you is coming across one of Wayne's posts in LinkedIn that had an audio background. You know, I turned it on and I heard this marvelous accent, and that accent always excites me. As a first generation American coming from West Indian parents, when I hear an accent that's not from the Bronx, I need to understand who that person is. So Wayne, tell us about your origination. Where's that lovely
Yes, sir.
accent come
Thank you
from?
so much. I appreciate that. So I'm from Kingston, Jamaica, and I grew up with my parents. That's my superpower, the superpower of having an intact family all my life growing up. My parents and
Mm,
uh, two elder sisters, Delane and Vivine. And so growing up in Kingston, I eventually moved out after high school to Ocho Rios, which is on the North Coast, and started working for the Super Clubs, which is one of the first all inclusives across in the world in the hotel industry, and
mm.
got my start there. Started a company called Pals International and moved off on my own as an entrepreneur and lived in about 4 or 5 Caribbean islands in the late 80s. And then in the 90s, late 80s, I came to the United States, went through college at City University, got my bachelor's in psychology and an MSW at Hunter College in, uh,
In the
yes, sir.
Bronx.
Yes, sir. Yeah. We had moved,
Wow.
the office at the time had moved to Harlem as well for grad studies, MSW.
That's marvelous. So friends, again, that's one of the things. Certainly, when you're on LinkedIn and you're going through your homepage, you can see what people are posting. Uh, so again, to come across Wayne and to listen to him and to hear that marvelous accent that reminds me of my father, right? My people, just warmed my heart. And secretly, I did want to have an opportunity to understand and meet people of Caribbean descent who are in this business. Because I kind of believe we have a sensibility because of the language that we use. We can interpret things in
Yes,
patois,
sir.
right? And I think patois is an incredibly direct way to express yourself, using contextually relevant metaphors and analogies and
It's
things like that.
colorful. It's
Not to turn it,
colorful.
it's
Yes, sir.
colorful. Yes, yes, it's colorful, it's impactful, and you just kind of understand it. Um, so that it's a proud thing for me to have a conversation with a West Indian that has a purpose and that is working and living and fulfilling that purpose. So thanks for
Thank you,
that.
sir.
Thanks for sharing your background. Wayne, I am curious about the specifics of your work because you are working with men of color in midlife. What are some of the typical opportunities that you address with men as they're progressing through various life
It's a great
stages?
question. And let me just have a disclaimer and say that though I target men of midlife, I have found that men younger than 40 are attracted to my work. And so I have a host of young brothers who are thinking, before I get there, let me jump in and get some help. So I just want to share that. So here are the things typically that you'll see. There's this question, I call it the Paw syndrome, PAW, that seems to afflict most of the men that I see. And the first one is possibility. They really don't think that their goal or their aspirations are truly possible. Now, mind
Mm.
you, these are sometimes unconscious beliefs, what we call limiting beliefs, but they're real possibility. Number two, they don't really think they have the ability. That imposter syndromes that you see is real. You know, brother shows up in an area where he's one of few, and he somehow doesn't feel he has a license to be there, right? Deep down,
Right.
because that's been the narrative. You're not. And thirdly, and this seems to afflict a lot of brothers because of our inherited trauma, they don't think they're worthy enough. So this is learned helplessness, learned hopelessness, and learned worthlessness. And see, what I tend to do is the minute I start hearing the reasons why someone thinks they can't get to the next level, it's usually smeared in rationale. But at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, what my skill set and experience has allowed me to do is to see beyond the forest, the trees, and to be able to call it what it is. And
Right.
usually it's the fear of one of these things that they have living deep within.
Thank you. POW. PAW.
PAW.
Very easy to
Yeah.
remember. I would like to focus in on a second about
Yes, sir.
ability and the imposter syndrome. I recently read that the recognition of that, we'll just call it an emotional state,
Yes,
if
sir.
you don't mind, but the recognition that you may feel that way is actually good for you if you decide to do something about it. So when someone comes to you and they start to express these sentiments about their ability or their worthiness, um, how much of themselves are they exposing? Right? What is some of the things that they're telling you?
Well, typically it's unknown to them what the real causes are. They believe what they choose to believe. And here is the thing that I have discovered. Your beliefs and values drives your thinking, and your thoughts drives your words, your activities or your actions. Your actions
Indeed.
repeated over and over becomes your habits. Your
Habits.
habits
Yes.
creates your outcome, or what we call your personal reality, which ties back into your personality, question of identity. So one of the things when a person comes in and they start saying that I'm not qualified enough, for example, that's an identity issue, right? And it's a false
Mm.
belief that is perhaps either around ability or worthiness, and sometimes possibility. And for me, it's really a matter of asking direct questions to sort of eliminate sort of what a doctor would do, right? You rule out certain things. And so you
Got you.
by asking powerful questions, you rule out the impossibilities or improbabilities and narrow into what's really happening. Procrastination and lateness, for example, is really a symptom. It's not the problem, it's a symptom to something else. People do that oftentimes because they fear showing up. There are people who are afraid of success in a family where they know that they're going to be called on to put on the roof on the house, to take care of the kids, to
Right.
do this stuff. So they shy away from getting that job that's going to increase their income, even though consciously they're not saying, I don't want it. Their behavior based on their belief prevents them from doing this. So it's really about sitting down and engaging and having this dialogue where I pry, I listen. More importantly than anything else, people don't understand that in this work, the strongest aspect of skill set is the ability to listen and listen for what's not being said. And so I listen, and then
Right.
it's about asking questions.
Great. So I will share, Wayne. Um, when I decided to launch my practice in earnest as a full time sole proprietor, to do this work. This podcast is just a part of that because I love having these types of conversations. There was a week or two period where I felt like something, right? I felt a lack of seeing more possibilities. I felt like I didn't have the background or the prerequisite to do what I was believing I should do based upon a purpose that I had just discovered. And I did, and I'll use the word suffer from this imposter syndrome because it just really, I was second guessing myself. Fortunately, I have a partner and a friend that said, "You got to be kidding, right?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not feeling. I'm not kidding. I'm feeling like, maybe this isn't right." Um, so in the conversations that you have with people around this, um, what are the types of things that you say to either encourage them or to get them to think beyond where they are relative
Yeah,
to being an
great
imposter?
question again, Lonnie. Well, one of the things we look at is we look at what we call circle of excellence. It's a terminology borrowed from NLP, neurolinguistic programming. And
Yes.
what this is, in your past experience, where have you done well, succeeded? Have there been or are there indications of other people who have done what you are doing? Where have you shown up where you have great wins? And what we do is
Hmm.
we help people understand that if you've done it, or if it's possible, for one, you can really track, mimic, repeat by following those strategies. See, everything we do is done with strategy, meaning we are not necessarily always aware of the strategy, but if you order food on a menu, there's a strategy to how you order food. Some of us look on the right side before the left, others look on the left and then the right, right? We order based
Yes.
on prices, or we order based on taste, and then we order based on these strategies. We do the same thing in all that we do. And so when you start realizing that you have patterns, if you have any
Hmm.
pattern of success, you can replicate that success by doing the same thing that you did to get there. And so this is one of the things that I use to help people remove the sense of ineptness that they feel about themselves. Of course, the reality is to preparation. Are you
Right.
prepared to do this work? And so, coaching is not a place where you want people to feel good, attaboy, and give them a medal for showing up. It's hard work, and you got to come in ready to do the work, because what we're going to do, we're going to hold the mirror up to yourself. Coaching is about you pulling on you, right? The coach doesn't give you the answers. The coach knows that inside of you, deep within, are all of the elements to resolve your own issues. God didn't give you more than you could bear, brother. And so we get people to sort of get deep within, Lonnie, and figure it
Right.
out.
Right. So friends, here's the perfect opportunity for some Jamaican patois. And I will say to Coach Wayne, go on with it, my
Yes, yes,
youth.
yes. Enough respect.
Go on with it, Fred. That means go on, like go on with your bad self, right?
Thank you.
That's what that translates into. Powerful. Thank you, Wayne. Do me a
Yes, sir.
favor, man. Take us through one of your typical
Okay.
weeks because you're prolific. You got a lot going on. I can't keep up with you on LinkedIn, but take us through a typical
Okay.
week for you.
So I'm big on exercising. I'm celebrating next month my 62nd birthday, and I've gone through a. Thank you, my brother.
Congratulations.
And my tagline is to be bigger, better, and bolder. And so one of the
Mm,
things that I do in terms of my work and the way I live, I recently, for example, had a gentleman who was obese, or maybe not obese, but overweight. And this is a professional. And one of the things that I was working with him with was to get himself together in terms of wellness and health, so that he could be more efficient and effective in terms of just doing everything else. It was slowing him down. And I told him about starting a course where he had to get up in the morning and do certain things. And I enlisted myself in a coach so I could do the same thing that I was asking him to do. So a lot of what I don't tell people to do things that I wouldn't want to do, you know? And so I identify with people's resistance and fears. So I say that to say, if I'm talking about health, I'm a vegan, doesn't mean I'm smashing anything else and choices that people make. But for me, that's what works for my body, my blood type, and that's what I do. And so, because I talk about health, you find me in the gym or you find me in the park on a weekend working out, and a couple days a week, I'll take my wife with me and help her work through her issues as she's menopausal and dealing with some weight challenges right now. And I have that throughout the course of my day, or as I'm walking past the office, I jump on my bar and I do some pull-ups and that sort of thing.
Okay.
And then throughout the day, I make calls like this one with brothers who are in the field and share ideas. Iron sharpens iron. So there's more than enough
Right.
to collaborate and to cooperate. And we don't always have to be about competition and conflict. And so I do these throughout the day as needed. And I have appointments with my clients, these one-on-one appointments that I will see as needed. I work with another friend who sends me clients as well. He does executive coaching.
Wow.
So even though I'm a life coach, I'm able to help folks with executive coaching, because at the end of the day, coaching is really about helping people with the mindset, right? Even before the skill set. And so my day is with that. I'll call my VAs in Nigeria and I'll give them tasks for the week to do. They support me on the back end, in some things. I give them the content. I create all my content, but some of the editing I may pass on because that slows me up. And I make time, Lonnie, this is the other thing. Every day, I have 4 kids biologically. I'm part of a blended family. So my current wife,
Right.
Audrey, right? She has 3 children and 3 grandkids. So altogether, we have 7 kids and 3 grandkids. But
Wow.
it means there are exes and in-laws and all this stuff. And so one thing that I take pride in is every day, not a day passes, I pick up the phone and I'm in touch with a member of my family. I stay connected. So, and I mean, this doesn't go on forever and ever and ever, but it's just, hello, good morning, how you doing? I'm here for you. Or how can I help? Or what's going on? And that's something that I live by, because family to me is the first institution and it's the greatest one. If we can get that right, we can go anywhere and be leaders.
Absolutely. Family is the first institution. By the way, man, I want to give you a shout out for mentioning, not mentioning, in involving the fact that you are a married man with a family, and you talk about your family. I just want to give you a shout out for the fact that you're recognizing your queen and the things that you do together, particularly when you wake up in the morning and you share your gratitude. That's really important. And again, you said it's like your second wife. So you've been through relationship struggles before, as have many of us, myself included. Um, how much of like your previous relationships has either encouraged you or informed you about how to be now?
I'm glad you asked, because it's part of what had propelled me back then to be the man I am today. My ex, when we went through our issues, she moved on and she's now married, happily married to a wife in Atlanta. And for a while, that hit me. I was like, "Whoa, did I do that? How did you know?"
Right.
And it put a lot of strain. So I sought therapy for about a year, and I got ill, and it just was a lot of stress for me. I became a wanton kind of guy as far as saying, well, you know what, what's this all about? And for a while, I lost direction. And I was going through my midlife crisis, right?
Indeed.
And it helped me, you know, they say trials and tribulations bring about triumphs and testimonies, right? And so when I went through all of that, I woke up on the other side realizing that I could be a better man if I made the shift. It wasn't about what other people were doing. It wasn't about what the man was doing. At the end of the day, I made the shift. I'm actually working on a book right now, Ronnie, to talk about when the shift hits the man. Because when that happens to us, as it will, we have to make a commitment. One of the things that I decided to do as my boys, especially, were growing up, was never to have an extramarital affair because it was important. And I've been there. It was important to set an example, to model for my boys that that's somebody's
Yes.
daughter and you don't play games, right? I also wanted my daughters, two sons, to recognize that if daddy has this in order, that's my dad. You are not going to come in from the outside and break down the value of what family looks like and what a real man should do in terms of care, protect, provide, and preside for me. And so, and
Here,
so
here.
those were important things to me. And I got to tell you that for all of my four kids, every graduation, college through high school, I've had everyone, and I mean everyone, at the table. I'm at both the literal and proverbial head of the table, bringing people together. Because at the end of the day, it's about the family.
It's about the family. Powerful, very powerful. You know, I'm so glad these conversations are recorded because you're dropping some golden eggs, really insightful things for us to remember. I had been writing some of those down. Um, so, Wayne, obviously, you're accomplished and you're a learned person.
Thank you.
In keeping with the theme of this show, I learned, therefore I can. What is that thing that you intentionally decided to learn? Therefore, you could go ahead and do something great. I learned X, therefore I can Y. What are those things for you, Wayne?
Empathy. And Audrey, my current wife, she says to me all the time, I get upset that something's going on. She says, come from a position of love. And whenever she says that, I backtrack, and it's almost like petting your dog when he is roofing and calming him down. When she says that, it brings me back. And so I have had
Right.
to learn how to put myself in the other person's shoe. Now I'm this guy who, as a leader, I can be powerful and assertive and sometimes intimidating. I'm 6'3" and 210, but I walk in the rooms disarming people with a smile, Lonnie. That's what I do because I want people to understand that I am approachable. And so for me, learning, my father too, by the way, this is a Dawson trait. My dad would walk down the streets and kids would be walking behind him because he had that thing, that glow, that smile. He opened doors, and you'll see any of my kids in pictures. That's the one thing that distinguishes us from everybody else. There's this smile, but it's from the
Yes.
heart. Your eyes and all of that should welcome people. And so empathy and recognizing that um, the world doesn't have to be hostile to you, and you don't have to be hostile to the world. You can create in your mind the world that you'd like to belong to and manifest in it.
Absolutely. So you were very intentional about being more
Yes, sir.
empathetic. Uh, and that allows you to be a better coach, a better father, a better husband. What does
Yes,
that
sir.
get you?
My kids helped to teach me to be a better dad because I'm old Caribbean man who is like, do it this way. But then it was tyranny, right? If people have to be walking on eggshells in your space in their home because dad says don't put your feet in the couch. Come on now. And so I had to learn that if the kids weren't running over to hang out on my side of the couch, if they weren't looking forward to doing certain things, then it was probably not them but me. And so as they grew up, adolescents, and they had their own things going on, my need to, you didn't call me today, all that stuff went out the window. And so having empathy, recognizing that the most important word for people is, or words, what's in it for me. People are focused
Mm.
on that channel,
Yeah,
WIIFM. Yes, sir. Yes,
WIIFM.
sir.
Yes.
And so once I started recognizing that it's not about me, people are doing what matters to them first and foremost, because that's the way it is, right? And once I recognized that in terms of empathy and started asking the question now, what does it look like? Taking not just the first person perspective, but the second perspective, or even the third, which is like someone looking on the interaction between me and somebody else, and having that sort of overstanding, it helped me tremendously to be a better spouse, a better father, a better friend, a better brother, and a better coach.
About that. Great. You know, I think empathy is key. That in acknowledging others' lived experiences is being valid, and not just my own. Empathy has become a bigger part of my life, for sure, over the years. I guess as I matured and experienced multiple
Yes, sir.
crises, right? I think that is one of the skills that's at the forefront, for the individual and for the leader. Um, so Wayne, you did mention that you do work with leaders. Though you would say you're not an executive coach, you're a life coach, but you do work with executives. What are some of the challenges, or again, some of the opportunities, that you're having with leaders? What are those conversations like? What are you impressing upon them or helping them to
Yeah.
understand?
Well, what is real is that when you talk about C suites and you're moving up the line, that we show up less and less. And when I'm working with leaders that are at that level, oftentimes, and you talked about imposter syndrome, oftentimes folks are intimidated, recognizing that it doesn't take much for people to start attributing the fact that you're a man of color to why you didn't perform at the level that they anticipated. So
Mm,
people know that they are targets in many ways, and this is true today in this country, as it is
mm,
other places. And so a lot of times when I work with leaders, it's really about helping them to know that it's a reason to be an ambassador. In other words, when you show up and you're one of the only men of color in the room, this is time to shine. This is time to change the narrative. This is your opportunity to show up on time. I had to learn these things, Lonnie, the hard way. This is your time to speak intelligently. You don't have to always open your mouth, but when you open your mouth, make sure that it's worth noting. It's time to be prepared. It's time to look good, smell good. It's time to show up and represent, because behind you are possibilities of doors being closed or not, depending on how you show up.
right.
And so I help men. I spend a lot of time on mindset. I help people to
Mm,
understand that you are, in fact, worthy. It is possible for you to get in these spaces. And today, with technology allowing us to have access to information and skill set, there's
mm.
nothing stopping anybody from learning anything that they desire to do. So you have the ability or the capacity. It's about a decision. Success, Lonnie, as is failure, is really nothing more than a decision.
How about that? Yeah, one of those great philosophers says, excellence is a habit,
Yes, sir.
right? And habits, as you already said, is just a series of decisions that inform your thinking, your mindset, your attitude, then ultimately your actions and your behavior. Absolutely. So Wayne, what's next for you in your practice? What is it going to evolve into or grow into? What's
Well,
next
thanks for
for you?
asking. I've always longed to do some work alongside my wife, and I recently went on two mini vacations. Went to the Bahamas, and then 2 weeks later, just came back a week ago from Panama, where we hit the jungles in Panama and met some of the indigenous folks there. Um, but something occurred while I was traveling, and that is the lessons that we get about the world, as much as it is available to us on pages, online. There's nothing like the experiential learning of meeting people and visiting places. And so I wanted to launch, and I'm working on that now, a leadership program to start working with business to business kind of thing versus the individual, to create a leadership retreat. And so one of the things that I'm doing is sort of your all-inclusive retreat. And Lonnie, I told you back in the day, I started out being the all-inclusive
That's right.
guru, set up the first
That's
all-inclusive
right.
in Aruba, Dutch St. Martin, French St. Martin, Curacao, and the Bahamas back in the 80s. So I have a knack, a thing or two about what it feels like to go to an event and leave your wallet at home. And so one of the things that I'm going to be working on is creating, I've already touched base with a good friend of mine who we grew up together in Sandals, at Sandals Resort, Jeremy Jones.
Wow.
Shout out to Jeremy. He's celebrating 20 years with Sandals today. And just reaching out, doing the homework. It's going to take some while, and looking at building like a cruise ship. But you can write it off as an expense. But in there, we're going to be giving you material that's going to have you grow and become a bigger, better, bolder leader. And at the same time, bring your wife along, and she can go shopping and you can do dinner with her. That's what's next for me, Lonnie.
Wow. That's exciting. Anyway, you're not going to believe this. I have the same vision, very similar.
Then Lonnie, we should be
Uh,
talking. I'm dead serious.
and
Okay,
we are.
okay,
We
okay.
absolutely are. We absolutely are. Wayne, I do want to cover something very
Sure.
quickly because you brought it up. Um, you did mention about being the only person of color when you walk into a room, etc. That would bring up the ideal of diversity, inclusion, equity, belonging, etc. Wayne, I'm sure you are aware that DEI is currently
Yes,
under
sir.
attack. What are your thoughts about that? And particularly, how do you see those of us that are practitioners in the DEI space? Have we contributed to the backlash we're currently experiencing? Should just
Yeah.
share with us your thoughts about DEI today, why and where it's
Well,
going.
I'm from the Republic of Florida, where everything runs differently. And it is on the attack here, if anywhere else. So I tell people this: I am pro black, I am not anti white. That's the first thing. And so I'm not a threat. I believe in allyship, where others who are in positions of power, who are already in the door, can reach out and share with their counterparts the importance of diversity. So for me, it's about educating and bringing people close to me, and making them understand that with this smile, there is no ferocious planned attack. There's nothing latent.
Right.
I am for real inviting you to the table so that you can understand me, because here's what I've come to understand in my travels and interactions with folks over the years. Though we came here, all of us, on different ships, we are all in the same boat. And the reality is that we have more to share, more in common than diversity to separate us, right? And so for me, one of the work that we have to do in educating ourselves, which we must do as men of color, people of color, know who we are. The truth will set you free. Once we know who we are, we can walk without feeling that someone has our ticket. And with that level of
Mm,
confidence, approach folks, be open. And now there's no need to intimidate. It's about getting folks to work together and to understand a little bit more. So, why is it that my son can't have a birthday party and invite your son? The
right.
kids aren't born with this stuff, right? And we can unlearn some of the stuff and realize that we can share a brewski and watch a game together, right? It's all cool. And so we have work to
Right.
do. And we have to get out of the box sometimes that we put ourselves in, where it's me versus you. We're seeing this right now. We're seeing this country fall apart because of all of the excess polarity. It feels oftentimes like we're back in what they call third world, right? And so we can remove all of that, but we have a part to play.
I got one last question for you. Share with us something that I haven't asked you, or that you think it's important for just folks to know and understand.
In family life, it's a family. I ask permission to touch on that because that's so important. So, my superpower, man, is my father next years to my mom before, God bless him, a massive heart attack one evening, and she survived him for 20 years. Never missed a dinner date with the family. I think about building. He made houses, my mother made them homes. And for me, that was what I took. Whenever I'm in a dark spot, I'm back to home, remembering the fundamentals. You see, Lonnie, VIP for me doesn't mean very important person. I chose it because it represents values, identity, and purpose.
Wow. Be blessed until we talk again. Thank you for participating. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for learning. That concludes this episode of I Learn, Therefore I Can, an iRise Consulting Performance podcast. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling better about being better at what I was asked to do. Thanks for joining. Thanks for listening. And thanks for learning, because learning matters and performance counts. Be well.